I thought I was coming home for Christmas. Instead, I walked into a house that felt abandoned. The front porch lights were off. Snow had gathered along the steps, and the only sound was the wind pushing against the old wooden door. It wasn't the warm family reunion I'd imagined during my 12-hour drive home. There was no smell of Christmas dinner, no laughter, no music playing in the background, just silence. For a second, I wondered if I had the wrong day. Mom, I called as I stepped inside. Nothing. Dad. Still nothing. The living room looked frozen in time. A half-decorated Christmas tree stood in one corner, with only a few ornaments hanging awkwardly from the branches. Wrapping paper lay scattered across the floor, as if someone had left in the middle of decorating. Then I heard a weak voice. "Is that you?" I rushed toward my grandfather's bedroom. There he was, 83 years old, wrapped in 2 blankets, shivering. The room was cold enough that I could see my own breath. "Grandpa!" He forced a smile. "I knew you'd come." I immediately noticed the empty pill organizer beside his bed. "When did you last take your medication?" He hesitated. I don't remember." My heart dropped. I hurried to the kitchen. The refrigerator contained almost nothing. Half a carton of milk, 2 eggs, an old loaf of bread, a bottle of mustard, no prepared meals, no fresh groceries, nothing that an elderly man should have been surviving on. Then I noticed a note. It was stuck to the refrigerator with a Christmas magnet. I smiled for a second, thinking maybe it explained where everyone had gone. It did, just not in the way I expected. "Gone to Maui. Don't worry about us. We finally decided to invest your savings. The stock market is exploding right now. By the time we get back, your $27,000 will probably be worth twice as much. Think of it as your Christmas gift to the whole family. Love you." For several seconds, I couldn't breathe. I read it again, then again. $27,000. Gone. Not borrowed. Not discussed. Taken. That account wasn't just another bank balance. Every dollar had a story. It represented 6 years of working 2 jobs. Morning shifts at a warehouse. Night shift delivering food. Birthdays I skipped. Vacations I never took. Friends I slowly lost because I was always working. Every time someone invited me somewhere, I'd say, maybe next year, because I was building my future. I had one dream: buy my own house before turning 35. That account was my escape. Now, someone else had gambled it away. I immediately checked my banking app. The balance nearly made me collapse. $143.27. Transaction history. Transfer after transfer. Large withdrawals. Investment transfers. Every single one authorized through the joint access my parents had convinced me to give them years earlier, just in case something ever happens to you. I'd believe them, because they're family. Or so I thought. I looked at Grandpa. "Did you know?" His eyes filled with tears. "They told me not to call you." "What?" "They said you'd overreact." He reached into his drawer and handed me his phone. I tried. 23 missed attempts. Every single one blocked before they reached me. My own parents had taken his phone whenever I called. I wasn't just betrayed. They had isolated him. That was the moment something inside me changed forever. Not because of the money, because of him. While they were posting beach photos from Hawaii, he had been choosing between food and medication. That night, I drove Grandpa straight to the hospital. The doctor looked concerned. He's dehydrated, malnourished, and he hasn't been taking his heart medication consistently. I closed my eyes. Someone had done this. Not strangers. My own family. While Grandpa rested, I sat in the hospital parking lot staring at my phone. Instagram. My mother's newest post. A luxury beach resort. Caption. Best Christmas ever. Sometimes you just have to take risks. Hundreds of likes. Smiling selfies. Ocean sunsets. Expensive dinners. Cocktails. Designer shopping bags. Every picture felt like another slap across my face. Then I noticed something. My father's comments. He wasn't talking about vacation. He kept mentioning one thing. The market. This stock is going to triple. We're about to become millionaires. Suddenly, everything made sense. The vacation wasn't the goal. The gambling was. The next morning, I went back to the house. Not to cry, to investigate. I searched through drawers, file cabinets, old tax folders, bank statements, receipts. At first, I was only looking for proof about my missing savings. Instead, I uncovered something much bigger. Old withdrawal slips, credit card statements, loan documents. Everything had one thing in common. My name. Without realizing it, I've been financing my parents' lifestyle for years. Small amounts. 500 here, 800 there. Emergency loans, temporary transfers. Promises they'd always repay me. They never had. I opened my laptop. One spreadsheet, one calculator, one cup of coffee. Hour after hour, the total climbed higher. 20,000, 35,000, 48,000. By sunrise, the number stopped at over $73,000, not including the $27,000 they had just taken. Over $100,000 had quietly disappeared from my life over the years. And for the first time, I stopped asking myself why they did it. I started asking a different question. How was I going to make sure they could never do it again? The first thing I did wasn't call my parents. It wasn't because I was afraid of what I'd say. It was because I already knew what they'd say. We'll explain. It's not what it looks like. We're family. Instead, I focused on the only person who had truly been abandoned, my grandfather. After he was discharged from the hospital, I moved him into my apartment temporarily. It wasn't large, but it was warm, safe, and close to his doctors. I hired a home care nurse to visit during the day, arranged automatic prescription deliveries, and met with an attorney to update his legal documents. For the first time in years, Grandpa, not my parents, would control who made decisions about his life. Then I called my bank. Every shared authorization was revoked. New accounts were opened. Passwords changed. Security alerts activated. No one would ever touch my finances again. Next came the evidence. I printed every transfer, every withdrawal, every text message asking for just a little help, and every promise to pay me back. I organized them into folders by year. It wasn't about revenge. It was about never being manipulated again. A week later, the financial news exploded. Markets had plunged. Several of the risky stocks my father had bragged about lost most of their value in just days. I wasn't surprised. He had never invested. He had gambled. 3 days after that, my phone rang. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. Then Dad. Then both of them, over and over. Finally, a message appeared. We're home. We need to talk. It's urgent. Not once did they ask how Grandpa was. Not once did they ask how I was. Only that they needed me. I drove to the house that evening. The Maui souvenirs were still on the kitchen counter. Their smiles disappeared the moment they saw me. Dad looked exhausted. Mom looked panicked. We lost everything, she whispered. Dad stepped forward. The market crashed. We just need another $20,000 to recover. Once the stocks bounce back, we'll repay you. I stared at him. You stole $27,000 from me. It wasn't stealing, he snapped. It was an investment for the family. I quietly placed a thick folder on the dining table. He frowned. What's this? Open it. He flipped through the pages. Bank statements, transfer records, old messages, loan receipts, highlighted totals. His face slowly turned pale. What is all this? The money you've taken from me over the years. Mom tried to laugh. Families don't keep score. I looked her directly in the eyes. No, people who are being used eventually have to. Silence filled the room. Then Dad pointed toward the hallway. Your grandfather always wanted us to stay together. I slid another document across the table. He already knows. It was a copy of Grandpa's updated legal paperwork. His finances, his medical decisions, his estate. None of it was under my parents' control anymore. Dad's voice cracked. You turned him against us. No, I replied calmly. Your actions did. Mom began to cry. We're your parents. And I was your son. The words hung in the air. For the first time in my life, nobody argued, because there was nothing left to say. I stood up, picked up my car keys, and walked toward the door. Behind me, Dad called out one last time. "So that's it? You're just leaving us." I turned around. "I didn't leave you. You left me the day you decided my future was yours to gamble." Then I walked away. Months passed. I rebuilt my savings one paycheck at a time. It wasn't easy, but every deposit represented something far more valuable than money: freedom. Grandpa grew stronger, healthier, and happier than I'd seen him in years. He spent his afternoons gardening, reading, and reminded me that peace is worth more than wealth. As for my parents, they eventually had to sell a house to pay off their debts. They learned painfully that there is no investment strategy that can replace trust once it's been destroyed. People often ask if I ever forgave them. The answer surprises them. I did. Forgiveness helped me let go of the anger. But forgiveness didn't mean reopening my bank account, handing over another dollar, or pretending nothing had happened. Sometimes the greatest Christmas gift isn't found under a tree. Sometimes it's finally learning that love without boundaries becomes permission for people to keep hurting you. And the day I stopped being my family's emergency fund was the day I finally became the owner of my own future.